Subtaker Space Bandit here with yet another episode of World of Tanks. And how you doing, boys and girls? How you doing? Playing tanks? Still playing tanks? Yeah, I play. Not much, but I still play. So, continuing on this topic of positions in World of Tanks. And what we're gonna focus on is some OP positions and some positions that are not OP but are maybe critical to winning the game. Maybe some comfortable positions for different tanks or uncomfortable positions to other tanks. So we're gonna focus on the position itself and what tank is it good for. We started with map El Alamein last time. We're gonna continue today with map Prokhorovka, and on this map, boys and girls, there is no better position to play at than position E3/E4. No matter what tank you're in, whether you're in a light tank, medium tank, heavy tank, even a tank destroyer, you can play out of this position. Now, there is an alternate position on this map for the opposing spawn, which I will cover in a different video, but if you watch my channel in the past, you probably have seen me play out of that position as well. It's position F3. So basically alternative to position E3, E4 on this side of the map is position F3 on the other side of the map. But anyway, why is this position so good? Okay, let's get right into it. First of all, let's talk about what tanks you can bring into this position. I would strongly suggest that you bring tanks that have good gun depression and solid turret armor. Now, if you don't have those, if you come here in a light tank, obviously you have to keep moving, because if you stay stationary and you have no armor, you'll be shredded by TD sitting down the 1-2 lines. So you gotta be moving. Same goes for medium tanks that don't have much of an armor, like a leopard. If you bring a leopard here, you better be running, because if you stay in one spot, you will be dead in a matter of time. But if you have relatively decent turret, like for instance M48 Patton, or the Chisel, or FV4202, or Centurion Action 10 from medium tech tree, you can definitely play out of here. It'll be tougher to play with tanks like T-62A or Object 140 Soviet medium tanks, because they don't have gun depression, so you actually have to overexpose over the ridgeline in order to hit anyone, so that'll be a bit tougher, but you can still make this position work. But best is to bring your heavy tank here, especially heavy tank with good solid turret armor like this VZ51 Czech heavy, or the second replay that I'm going to show you is in a Valor or Super Conqueror or M103. Any of these tanks with solid turret armor, definitely best tanks to bring into this position. Now, there is no arty safe position on this map, so regardless where you play on this map, you will get slaughtered by arty. So the one thing you can hope for is just fingers crossed artillery is not going to pay attention to you in this position. Now, if you are an artillery player, you should be focusing this position heavily, because that position either wins or loses you the game. That's exactly how it works. Now, other aspects of playing from this position. I think the most important one is the fact that you trying to gain control of the most important area of the map. 1 to 6 line. All the way from 1 line to train tracks. That area is the most important area of the map. Area beyond the train tracks is not equally as important. I mean, it's somewhat important, but not equally as important. Now, another reason why that position is so key. So there are players that like to play out of positions E5 or E6, for instance, starting from north spawn. And those are also great positions because they give you shots into east and west side of the map at the same time. The only problem is that since you can shoot to the east and west side of the map from the central positions, you can get shot at as well. That means you cannot isolate one flank and just focus on one side of the map. You have to focus on both. And if you're good enough of a player, and if you have just an incredible amount of situational awareness, then yeah, play out of the middle. But I never find it the most beneficial, to be honest. Now, if you control 1 to 6 lane, you literally have control of the map, and you can easily spot out the hill at F9, G9 in order to progress further to this side of the map from central location, like area E6, for instance. That's exactly what I did in my Wheezy over here. So if you're moving to this side of the map after winning 1 to 6 line, I strongly suggest the center, unless you get outspotted by some TD with super high camo in area F9, G9, then it could be problematic. But otherwise, you should be able to access this area of the map through the center of the map. Literally. Now here we should be able to close out the game quite quickly. To be honest, there's almost nobody left on the opposing team, so it's just closing time. So we're going after this medium tank here, M48A2. We don't care if we lose HP right here, it doesn't really matter. We just want as much damage as possible. We put one shell into him. RD's aiming at us, but it doesn't really matter because at this point, even if we lose HP, we have this game secured, so that's not a problem. So yeah, that pretty much that's how you play this map. If the opposition falls on the west side of the map completely, there's no point for you to go any further south. Then this is how I approach this side of the map and basically just close out the game. Now, second game in a Valor, we're also gonna get ourselves in the same position E3, E4, and we're gonna duplicate what we did in the last game, except this game is gonna be slightly different because we're not gonna cross over beyond the train tracks. We're actually gonna try to push the same side of the map, but it will be a very similar situation. Now, going back to this position, and why play here and not anywhere else around the central area of the map, meaning position E5, E6, so on and so forth. Another thing you have to take into consideration is render range, especially in World War II mode. I find it the most beneficial playing out of this position. And because of the render range and the size of the map, this refers only to World War II mode, because obviously in Cold War anybody can hit you in this position from anywhere on the map. But in World War II specifically, you're out of render range for the players that are playing the hill, the zero line. So you won't get shot from that side of the map at all. So you can completely isolate that. You don't have to think about it, and you can just focus on where you're aiming and who can actually shoot you from where you're playing, which in this case would be area from in between the 1 line and the 6 line. That's it. Another reason to play out of this position is that you're always going to get assisted damage, no matter what, because you're playing so close to the central area of the map, or close to the map split between E and F lines. You'll always be spotting tanks. So it doesn't matter if you're in a medium tank, light tank, heavy tank, TD, you will always be spotting something on the opposite side of the map. So if you have artillery in play, you will always get assisted damage. And you always get assisted damage from the sniper schnitzels that are sitting on 1 and 2 line, like area C2, B2, so on and so forth. So I've never had a game, guys, I've never had a game from this position that turned out bad. What I mean by that, it doesn't mean that you will always win the game, but you will always get your damage. If not direct damage, you're gonna get your spotting damage. I've had games where absolutely no one came to this position except for me. And there are teams like that. They like to shoot from behind, they don't like spotting, or if there's no light tanks in the game. And these sometimes can be very fat games for you guys, especially when it comes to assisted damage. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will survive, but believe me, it's worth it. I mean, I've had 7,000-8,000 assisted damage games out of this position with limited direct damage because I was the only one exposing myself over the ridgeline, and that's another thing to keep in mind. If you're the only one exposing your turret above the ridgeline, you'll be the only one targeted. So sometimes it's just a matter of poking and letting your team do the damage. But I've had 7,000, 8,000 assisted damage games in heavy tanks, in medium tanks, you name it, out of this position here. And in some cases, you'll get YOLO'd. If you're the only one here, you'll get YOLO'd, you'll get taken out. It is what it is, but you should still be able to get your assisted damage out of this position, no matter what. Now, one more thing I want to add here. If you see there's this rock right in the middle there, you see it right there. So that rock is very beneficial as well, because using that rock, you can also isolate certain areas on each side of the map. So you saw me earlier playing out of the other position on the right side of this rock, like we're looking at it directly, right side. And that isolates me from the sniper schnitzels on the rail track in area J7, for instance. So you can set your tank in a position where you can actually isolate that area and not get shot from there. Like that TD that kind of took most of my health right now wouldn't have been able to hit me on the right side of this rock. Now, because I wanted to engage that Type 5 and I wanted to isolate any snipers from area J1 or K1, that's why I went on this side of the rock, so I can engage that Type 5 and don't get hit from there. But I had no idea there were unspotted TDs still on this side of the map. So keep that in mind. I don't know what this Barask is doing, so we'll just put one into him and screw him. Now, another vital point that I didn't bring up yet. If you're fighting heavy tanks on this ridgeline, pay attention to their movements. What I mean by that, do not overexpose over the ridgeline if you don't see them coming up. Because the only way you can get damage is if they try to shoot someone down the 1 and 2 line. And if they're trying to shoot someone, you should be anticipating them poking. And at that time, you should be poking also, so that you can put some damaging shots into them. And you saw bits and pieces of that in this game and the game earlier. Now, one thing to keep in mind, which I haven't touched on yet, is you have to be really careful paying attention to areas J2, J3 on the south side of the map, because opposition's TDs like to sit there and snipe from there. In certain cases, high camo TDs like sitting at H1, for instance, or J2, so you might get shot from those positions and you might not necessarily spot anyone there. So once you don't have any more shots, or if you can't spot anyone, beware of pushing down the 1 or 2 line if you don't have enough view range, because you will get slaughtered. So my advice to you is, if you're here in a heavy tank and you don't have any medium tanks or light tanks to push down the 1 and 2 line to spot, you just hold that position and you don't move from there. And eventually opposition will become impatient and they will push. And once they push, then you use the strength of your tank to dispose of them. Because once you dig into this position, you should be hard to take out, especially if you have good turret armor and good gun depression. Obviously, unless artillery is in play, because then goodbye to your game, to be honest. Say goodbye to your game. And I will show you some examples later on when RD is actually paying attention to this area, see what happens. It is not fun, trust me. It is not fun at all. Now, in this third game, we're in Centurion Action 10, or Centurion Action X, how I like to call it. And this tank is actually perfect for this position because, you know, you might not have the best turret armor, but you do have superb gun depression and very good view range in this tank. So if you play out of this position in a heavy tank, obviously your area of spotting will not be as good if you play it in a medium or a light tank. So probably this position is the most optimal for any medium tank in a game with very good gun depression, good turret armor, and good view range. Right, so Action X is one of those tanks that's actually fantastic to play here. And this game is going to be amazing because it's going to exemplify exactly what I'm talking about with respect to spotting damage. I'm not going to get a lot of direct damage in this game simply because, first of all, my aim wasn't too great on that day. Not sure why. Second, my HP is going to be gone quite quickly, and you'll see a little bit later on in the game. So it will prevent me from doing any additional damage. Also, if you look at the team lineups, there's so many TDs on the opposing team. The last thing I want to do is completely overexpose and be deleted at the beginning of the game. So I'm going to play it really cautious here. But advantage, there's no RD in the game. So I can be sort of passive aggressive. I don't know how to state it the best, but you want to be aggressive, but not to the point that you get exposed enough so that TDs and the back lines punish you. But be mindful of the fact that I'm one of the only tanks in the middle here that actually can provide spots to my team. So I have to be careful about that. I do have a Super Conqueror with me, and you'll see later on what kind of a game he had from what I spotted. Actually played fantastic, that guy. I think without him we wouldn't have been able to win this game. Now, this game is older. I don't remember from when, but as you can see, the footage is old. So this must be like a game from like 6 months ago or something like that. Here I got double tapped by 2 TDs on the right hand side. As you can see, there's Forge there and something else. That's what really took most of my HP. Just because I wasn't positioning 100% properly. I was using that wreck of a dead tank on my right hand side, as you see over there. But those TDs were slightly off to the left side of that wreck, so they had shots into me. That was the idea anyway. Use that wreck, isolate myself from the right side so I can put shells into the Type 5 in the middle of the map. That didn't work out that well for me, so I'm gonna have to play really cautious here. But if you look at my score or my result already, I'm already sitting at 5,000 assisted damage. And there we put a revenge shot into that Foch that earlier put a shell into us, which is always fun. One significant disadvantage we have at the moment is the fact that we don't have a light tank on our side. If you look at team lists, again, the opposition team has a light tank, we don't. Opposition's light tank should be feasting in a situation like this. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we outlast him. We don't want to overexpose. We don't want to die, because if we die with the only medium tank in a game right now, the game is lost. Definitely lost. So we have to stay alive at all costs. So we're going to be really patient here. Really, really patient. And passive, because that's what pretty much the game made us do. Right now, we're just poking our mantle up above the ridgeline to see if we can spot anything, and hoping that our TDs at D1, D2 can pick up the kills. As well as our Super Conk that's in the middle of the map. He's currently at E8 right now. I think he's targeting the hill at the moment. He's got shots over there. So we're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to be passive and wait. Now, progression. And what I mentioned to you guys earlier. Right now, there's no way I can push up. I have no HP whatsoever. I cannot push down the 1 and 2 lines. Just not possible for me. But one thing I can do, and I will do it a little bit later, is push into that ball. Area F3, or closer to area F3. Right now I'm going to try to support RTDs that are spotting all these guys sitting at H2J2. That's what I was trying to do. But I'm worried about that light tank. Last thing I want to do is get taken out by the light tank, but I will try to put some shells into him. Fortunately, my aim in this game, I don't know what the hell was going on here. I know my controller broke at one point. It could be that my controller wasn't functioning properly. Something was wrong, because obviously my aim was way off here. I don't really remember, guys. It's been such a long time ago. Or I was hammered. Who knows? I might have played a little bit drunk. And my finger was just slipping, you know. It could happen. Possible. Had too many drinks. One too many. One of those nights. But, again, this position just exemplifies that doesn't matter what tank you bring in here, you'll get a good game. From damage perspective. Combined damage. This is a gimme right away. Like if you're 3-marking a tank and you get map Prokhorovka, you know you can get yourself into this position and you're definitely not going to have a bad game. Unless Artie spoils the party, obviously. Like that's one big thing about it. Now, take a look at what this Soviet heavy tank does on my left hand side. Like he's going to get slaughtered. No, he got slaughtered. Literally. You can't do that. That's what happens on this map if there's so many tanks unspotted in the back line and there's so many TDs. And as you notice here, our TDs pushed and they all died. And I couldn't have supported them from where I am because I had no shots into those TDs sitting there. So my next step is what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get myself into that ball that I was telling you about earlier. Right here. Area F3 or close to F3. And we're going to see if we can spot anyone from here. Now, we spot this Emil. Not sure how we didn't get any assisted damage for that. That was weird. Yeah, that game can be spotty sometimes. But anyway, right now I was like, you know, I gotta push. I gotta get myself in that ball over here. And if I do, if I go below the ridgeline, I should be able to get myself in position J3 under the opposition's ridgeline and possibly spot those TDs sitting in the back. But who knew that Death Star was sitting right in the middle on top of the ridgeline at K3. So yeah, I kind of threw my tank away, but look what it did. It took a couple of those tanks from the game. Yeah. So anyway, I did not anticipate that. I did not anticipate the Death Star to be sitting right on top of the ridgeline. Right, like in the center, almost in the center. I would have never expected that. And I didn't have enough time to get under that ridgeline in order to be safe. Because I would be safe over there. Now, our team is playing very patient here, which I don't blame him. 4 TDs on our side, still 2 medium tanks, and 2 TDs on their side. Well, now 3. Oh, now 2. Only 2 tanks on the opposing team. So our team should be able to win this. But again, point of this video being, and I think I described it quite thoroughly as to how I play from this position and how good this position can be. So it definitely, I would say, it classifies as an OP position. I have to list it as an OP position because, to be honest, there isn't a game that I play on Prokhorovka, like I mentioned earlier, that is bad if I play from position E3, E4. There just isn't. So I have to classify it as an OP position. And from artillery perspective, artillery has to be shooting into this position, because if RD wants to survive as long as possible on this map and they want to win the game, that's the key area you should be focusing on. So if you're spawned on the north side, you should be focusing area F3. If you're spawned on the south side, you should be focusing area E3, E4. Or anywhere along E or F lines in both cases, because the most dangerous tanks are the tanks that sit on those lines, simply because they can spot across the map. Anyway, guys, I think I'm gonna conclude it here. I think I've got enough rambling about this position and this map and the things that can go right, wrong. Wow, burn, baby, burn. Man, that guy got shafted. But we still won the game over here. No problem. Anyway, I'm gonna show you a couple clips at the end of this video of other tanks that I brought into this position and show you what happened there. By the way, look at the result of the Super Conqueror playing from the central position. Whatever I spotted, he was shooting. Very good game by him. We still ended up with 10k combined damage. Look at that. That's crazy, to be honest. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, I'm going to show you a clip of FV4202 that I had on this map. Also an older game that I never posted, but it's just to show you what happens even if you get run over on a map like this in a central position. You still get decent game, even though your team sucks, which will be the case. Even though you won't get your direct damage, you're still gonna get your spotting damage, regardless. Even if you don't run away from there, even if you stay as long as you can, there will always be tanks shooting in this area, right? So obviously you have to pay attention to the map. You cannot come here all by yourself with no one supporting you from the back. You have to have some TDs or heavy tanks shooting from the back. If you don't have no one, everyone goes on the other side of the map, then don't come here. Don't come here alone. Unless you're in a fast tank, you want to spot out what's in here and then run away, then that's fine. But don't throw your tank away. Don't come here all by yourself. Make sure you have some support. There should be at least 3 or 4 tanks supporting you from the back. If you don't have that support, don't even come here. Just get out. Try to fight on the other side of the map. And you can already cross that out as a loss. I can tell you that much. Because if you don't win 1 to 6 line, the game is over. Most often than not. Anyway, guys. Sorry for such a long video and me rambling, but I thought this information was beneficial. I want to share as much info with you guys as possible, especially since I can't be making videos as often as I used to. I just don't have the bandwidth, don't have the time. So whenever I do have time to make a video, I want to make sure it's elaborate. I want to make sure that you guys getting something out of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. That's it for now. Until next time, happy tanking, Space Bandit. Check it out.
Fucking all sit back on the map. Fucking lost this one, you cockheads.